Hey, how you doing? This is John,
Hey,
and welcome to John's Long Box. I think we're live here with Bryan Baugh, the creator of Wulf and Batsy, the alternate comic book smash sensation. How you doing, Bryan?
good. How are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm nervous. I'm hoping this thing is working. let's. I'm just. Oh, it's live. I confirmed we're live. Okay, well, let's hope people show up and they can live chat. I'm new at all of this newfangled computer stuff, so if nobody shows up, at least I'm here with Bryan. All right. So I thought I'd start today by asking you a nice softball, easy question. What's your favorite monster?
Oh, the Wolf Man.
Oh, okay. I didn't expect that.
Yeah, Larry Talbot, Lon Chaney
Okay.
Jr.
Okay. Why is that? Why the Wolfman?
I don't know. I mean, I've been watching those movies since I was 5 years old on Saturday afternoon, Shock Theater, and loved them all. Loved all the Universal monsters, but for whatever reason, I thought the werewolf was the coolest, and I thought the Wolfman was the coolest character and my favorite movie. And as I get older, I just relate to him more and more and more. You know, the guy who's normal by day, but then at night he does monstrous things. I love the moral dilemma. You know, it's the classic guy who wants to be good, but he can't stop being a sinner. You know, he's like, that's the classic human dilemma. But also, I've also always been fascinated with the idea of transformation. You know, a guy who looks normal and then he becomes something else. I love that too. Even I like superheroes for the same reason. To me, when they put the costume on, they're transforming into another being almost. You know,
So
it's like
what? So like you like Captain Marvel, like Billy Batson becomes Captain Marvel, or do you like Clark Kent becomes Superman?
No, because they have normal faces. They look too human. I like Spider-Man because he changes into something that looks like an alien. You know what I mean? When he puts that mask on. You know,
when I remember when I was like a wee little kid, kindergarten, I was terrified of Spider-Man. You know, now it's just something you just, what's the word? Ubiquitous. It's everywhere. But when I was a little kid, Spider-Man is kind of freaky, right?
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I'm just old enough that when I was a kid, Spider-Man was on cartoons and he was on the Electric Company and
Spidey.
Yeah, and the 70s TV show too.
Parker Stevenson, was that the actor who played Peter Parker?
No.
Yeah, I should have known you would know.
I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head, but
yeah,
that weird live action one where he just looked weird, like he looked creepy.
Yeah,
there was a creepiness to Spider-Man.
His lenses looked like a salt shaker. It had little holes.
Right. Yeah.
And his web shooters were on the outside of his wrists.
Yeah, the big chunky web shooters, but I love that show.
But you know what's funny? I was just talking about that show. I hated that show, but I made sure I watched it every week because that was all we got as far as superhero TV.
Yeah, back in those days.
Yeah, back in those days.
But I love the Hulk for that reason too. You know, that's another Jekyll and Hyde story, basically.
Okay. Since you brought up Jekyll and Hyde, what are your thoughts on Jekyll and Hyde?
Well, the best Jekyll and Hyde movie is the 1932 version with Frederick March. That is one of my all-time favorite movies ever, horror or otherwise. That is one of the best movies. It's so good. It should have been a Universal movie. But
it's not?
No, I believe it's Paramount or MGM. I can't remember which one, but it came out when all the studios were, once Dracula and Frankenstein became hits, all the other studios jumped on the bandwagon and wanted to do their own Universal monsters. So they did Jekyll and Hyde, but that Jekyll and Hyde one is as good as any of the Universal ones. It's fantastic. Frederick March was nominated for Best Actor for that role in a horror movie, which is not normal.
Okay. Now, so this is a slightly different question. So I asked you what your favorite monster was. Now, what monster, if you could pick to become a monster, or if you were cursed to become a monster and could choose, which monster would you be?
As a kid, I would have said the Wolfman because werewolves are the coolest. But as an adult, I'd probably say a vampire because you got a lot more power and influence that way.
Yeah, and I guess you could disguise yourself as human when you just want to go to the movie theater and you know, and have a day off,
and just the opportunity to live longer. You know.
Yeah. Okay.
I hypnotize people.
Yep. Yeah.
Hypnotizing
will
people
not.
and get them to do your
Yeah.
will would be really useful.
I don't have to pay rent.
Right.
Okay, looks like looks like we're getting comments. Cool. I was a little nervous. Hello, Flying Fox Pro. Thank you for showing up.
Hello.
All right. So, one more question, and then we'll talk about Wulf and Batsy.
Great.
I know you're into the classic monsters, the Wolfman and the Invisible Man and all that stuff. Now, what about? I'm a big H.P. Lovecraft freak.
Oh yeah, me
and
too.
I noticed today, I watched your video today that you had posted up at Lovecraft. I got to go back and go to Wulf and Batsy #1 and check that out. I missed that, but so I assume you're a Lovecraft fan too.
Oh yeah. I've read all his stories. I just love his stuff.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I thought the cosmic horror was going to be too abstract or whatever you want.
No,
you want to...
not at all. I got introduced to Lovecraft through Stephen King, reading, because I was a Stephen King kid growing up, and he would always, in his interviews, there were these great books. There was one called Bare Bones, where it was all the interviews with Stephen King all through the years, from like when his career started all the way up until whatever year the book came out, mid 80s or whatever. And he was talking about all of his influences, and so I learned a lot from that book. And
cool.
his nonfiction book, Dance Macabre, he talks a lot about his influences in there too. And so as a kid, in 5th, 6th, 7th grade, however old I was learning about all those. That's where I learned about EC Comics from. That's where I learned about H.P. Lovecraft, That's where I learned about Richard Matheson. That's where I learned about a lot of those things and started hunting them down.
So you're a big horror reader also?
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I like the old stuff. I don't read a lot of modern stuff.
Yeah.
I've been rereading James Herbert's The Rats lately. I've been in a rat mood lately.
Dirty rat. Oh.
Yeah.
If I could sound pretentious for a bit, I went through like a phase about 15 years ago. I was like, I got kind of embarrassed. Like, all I read is comic books.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and I got all the classic like horror movies: Dracula, Frankenstein, The Invisible Man, Dr. Jekyll and I just read them all cover to cover. And then I read the science fiction, like The Lensman, all the inspiration. So they were excellent. I got to say, Frankenstein, I couldn't put down. What a good book.
I'm obsessed with Dracula. Dracula for me is like Lord of the Rings is for some people, or I read it like once a year. And
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and there's just like, it's not just the surface level story. There's so many subtextual ideas in there that just fascinate me to death. Every time I read it, there's something different. I mean, everything. I mean, you name it, whether it's horror or the battle between good and evil.
Did you read the other, like
the
Carmilla and why can't I think of the other one now?
Carmilla.
Polidori.
You're talking about Carmilla by J. Sheridan Le Fanu, the female vampire story.
That's why I didn't say the title. That's why I didn't say the author, because I can't.
Yeah, that's I love that one too. That one was written before Dracula and actually was inspiration.
Right. And what this the one? Why can't I think of the name with Lord Ruthven as the vampire?
That's The Vampire by Polidori, I believe.
Correct.
Yeah, correct. That's an interesting one. But Dracula is where it all crystallizes. Dracula's the perfect book to me.
Right. This was before like the rules of vampires, because they were out during the day,
Yeah, well, there were all superstitions, but sort of Bram Stoker kind of pulled them all into one thing.
Yeah, made it. Yeah, that crystallized. Okay, well, I just thought of another question: fast zombies or slow zombies?
I love both. It depends.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because
you surprised me.
No, because like the Romero movies with the slow zombies are wonderful. Of course, I love those.
Yeah.
But I mean, one of my all-time favorite movies is Return of the Living Dead, 1985.
Oh, that is an awesome movie. What a performance.
Dan O'Bannon.
That main guy with the glasses. I don't know.
The Tar Man.
What's that? What's his name?
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? The main guy.
There's the guy that ran he was like just freaking out because he knew he was going to die.
Oh, James Cameron, that guy, the actor.
Yes, the older guy in the movie.
Yeah.
And he had like that guy was like a spokesmodel for a supermarket chain in my area,
Yeah.
So every day, 100 times a day, he would come on and like tell you the price of beans or something like that. And then I turn on that movie, and he put in such a wonderful performance
He's
that
amazing.
it became like, oh my God, like A&P supermarkets. I don't know if you've ever seen those commercials. Now I got to
No.
find one of those commercials. I'll put it in the comment section.
I have a weird Forrest Gumpness with that movie because I just keep meeting people who were involved in it over the years. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The girl, Tina, the young innocent girl that gets chased by the tar man. The actress who plays her, Beverly Randolph, she emailed me one time out of nowhere because she saw my horror artwork or something and asked me to do an illustration of her with the tar man.
Cool.
And then she used it in a documentary. There was a feature-length documentary on Return of the Living Dead. It was called More Brains, and they were looking for artwork. They were looking for artwork to put in between the segments, and they used my artwork in there for.
That is awesome.
Tarman
so cool.
section. But yeah, and I met James Caron too, and William Stout, who designed the Tarman. You meet all. Yeah, it's living in California is weird.
Yep. I don't meet any celebrities. Yeah. What was I gonna say? Can you see the chat, or is it just me?
Yeah.
Oh, you can. So when you said you were into rats, somebody, Dan's Den of Pop Culture asked Willard and Ben.
Willard and Ben, yeah, sure. I mean, those are cool too. Yeah, I mean, I love that Crispin Glover remake actually that they did.
I love Crispin Glover. That guy,
yeah,
I could probably just watch him read the phone book and I'd be entertained.
Yeah, he's fun. But
he gave a speech about his album. What was the name of that album? And there was a phone number on it, and you could call the phone number and tell him what you thought, like leave a message. This is what I think the album's about.
Oh, that's cool.
So I called the phone number a few times. I never heard back from him. So we saw him give a speech, and I raised my hand. I'm like, well, the album's been out for over 10 years now. Could you tell me what the album is about? And he went, what is your name? And I said, John. He goes, John, that is a lovely question. That is an interesting question, but I am not going to answer it.
Wow.
I still don't know what the album's about.
That's great.
Lacey Lee's here.
I think my favorite rat story is Graveyard Shift by Stephen King. Not the movie now. I'm talking about the story in the book, Night Shift.
Okay.
The way that thing builds up and pays off at the end is wonderful.
Lovecraft has the rats in the wall story.
In the wall. Yeah.
I know rats freak me out. I do construction in Manhattan for many years. Opening up doors was just like a horror movie, like because you knew like it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
We're going down into the basement of some infrastructure building, and we got our flashlights. You open up, and freaking rats run all over the place, and I got to go in there and fix stuff. So,
well, then you would love the Graveyard Shift story because that's what it's all about. It's about guys at work running into a bunch of terrible rats. It's really good.
Oh God! All right, so now we got some people here. I just wanted to, those of you who don't know, Bryan Baugh is the creator of the wonderful comic Wulf and Batsy. And like the fanboy that I am, I went and got all of my Wulf and Batsy comics. I'm trying to
hold them up so they don't glare on the screen here.
Can you see this?
Yeah.
I don't even know which way to move. I'd make a horrible weatherman.
Right.
So I think is this the first? Is it the one I'm holding? Is this the first appearance of Wulf and Batsy?
No, that one was when Wulf and Batsy got picked up by Viper
Comics,
for a very brief time in 2006 or 7, I believe. And my buddy Josh Howard actually did that cover.
Yes.
Because he was their superstar artist at the time. And so they insisted. My experience at Viper was kind of interesting. It was run by two guys, and one guys liked Wulf and Batsy, and the other guys did not like it at all. So Josh had to kind of twist their arm to get him to put it out, and he was kind of their hot artist at the time. So they sort of, okay, we'll take a shot at it if Josh does the covers because we don't have any faith in this thing. Now that was the first one.
Oh, this is good.
Yeah,
I'm the typical comic book guy. I got to get the first appearances. That
was that one, and that company was called Chanting Monks Press, and they put out the first Wulf and Batsy comics in 2004 and 5. They did an anthology series called Zachariah's Midnight Terrors, which had a short story in it, which came out I think a little bit before that one, but that was technically the first one. And that's the current one with alternate.
Yeah.
This is the one.
I'm an alternative fanboy. I love the publisher Pete Samedi, and I've interacted with many of you alternate guys, and I got to say, you hands down, you guys are a bunch of gentlemen. You love the fans. You're nice to the fans. I've actually disagreed with a few people about the, and you guys were nothing but respectful, and so I'm a fanboy for life.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thanks.
So I just go on Indiegogo and I pledge to get the seasonal campaigns. And I'm weird. I don't even look at what the comics are. I like to be surprised. So I didn't know what T-Bird and Throttle was, and I didn't know what Wulf and Batsy was, and I knew the other comics that came out because I already got the first couple. So I was looking at this T-Bird and Throttle, and I'm like, well, what is this? What is this? And I put it aside, and then I saw Wulf and Batsy, and I got excited because I'm getting into monster comics. And when I saw this, I joke around because I used to put the comic books that I want to read on the bottom of a pile, but now I put the comic books I want to read on the top because I always say I could get hit by a bus tomorrow. So I read Wulf and Batsy. That was it. I think I went right on Twitter and started emailing you and Pete how much I loved it.
Yeah,
I remember
that.
Yeah,
that was really nice.
And I think I asked you what have this ever appeared before? I got to get all the appearances. Instant obsession. And then I did the same thing with Josh Howard and T-Bird and Throttle. Oh my God, you two guys were some of my first videos on my channel. I just love it. I'm looking at the rest of the comment. I want to make sure everybody sees this beautiful stuff that you did.
Well, I'm super flattered, John. Thanks so much.
I
really
yeah,
appreciate it.
Yeah, just to prove that I'm a total geek boy. I even got my Wulf and Batsy shirt on.
Yeah, there's the T-shirt. Yeah,
and then I did. I'm cold down here. I also did something that I never do. I don't know if you could see this. I don't even know which way to move because, like I said, I make the world's worst weatherman. But here, everybody, this is real, original Wulf and Batsy artwork from Bryan, and he was a gentleman about it. I just asked him, and I'm compulsive as all comic book collectors are, and I was like, I can't start buying original art. But I had to. I broke my rule, and I got you and Josh Howard to do original artwork, and that's the only two things that are hanging in my comic book room.
I'm honored and flattered.
And here we go. Look at this one. This guy's head over here. Could everybody see? Just showing off all my Wulf and Batsy. And here we go. I should have realized now how silly I was asking if you liked Lovecraft when I saw this tentacle beast. So that's. Am I missing anything? Do I have all your comics?
There were two of this. It came out on a Wednesday.
Yes,
comics,
I have those. I forgot that.
Which is Alterna's. I'm getting a terrible glare on my comic cover here, but this is the one where this is their anthology series.
Yes,
and in this particular issue, and in either 15 or 16, I can't remember which issue it is. I have a Wulf and Batsy short story.
Yes. Yes.
So this.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was the short story that was in this one.
Was that your first Alterna? The Wulf. It came out on a Wednesday.
No. The issue 1 and 2.
Okay.
That you just showed. The ones you just showed.
Yeah. Great covers too.
Thank you.
And every time I talk about Alterna, I got to talk about these. Is just the quality of the printing and the paper. Oh my God, what great comic books they are!
Yeah, they're real nice. I know Pete went through a few different printers before he found the right one, but now that he's got this place, they're putting out comics that feel and look and smell just like the comics I read when I was in 7th grade.
Yeah, they're the best comic books coming out right now. Like out of all, like Marvel, DC, these alternate comics, just physically. I'm not even talking about the art, and I'm not talking about the concept. I'm talking about just the paper and the binding and the. I don't know, Pete.
You really well
right.
done.
Yeah, well I know I talk about that a lot. Oh, my friend Pete just says he wants to know that he wants you to know he really enjoys Wulf and Batsy.
Oh,
Pete's a friend of mine.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that means the world to me. I mean, I've told the story before about how long I was doing these comics before the alternative opportunity came up. So, I mean, I was doing these comics in near obscurity for years and years and years, and taking them to conventions and trying to get them picked up by publishers, and everybody was rejecting it. Nobody wanted it, and I mean, Channing Monks took a chance, and Viper took a chance, and both of these companies kind of got hit by the 2008 financial situation, and they took a break like a lot of publishers did at that time. And after that, I was just kind of like, you know what, I'm just going to self-publish from now on. And I was putting out these trade paperbacks of Wulf and Batsy for a very small, loyal following. And then out of nowhere, it was in January 2021, I believe. That's when Pete reached out to me.
Oh, he reached out to you.
I forget how it happened exactly. There was something that happened, one of those silly Twitter or internet things that comes up. And I think a lot of people were contacting Pete to kind of give him their word of support. And I think I said something like that. And then he wrote me back and said, hey, would you be interested in coming over to Alterna with your stuff? And that's when we got talking. So he kind of said it out of nowhere. I didn't mean to prompt it. Actually, I was just trying to support him in some other issue. I didn't remember what it was about.
I understand. I'm too asking you. I was like, do you want to come on my show? You know what I mean? Like you don't want to ask, but then you do. But if you don't ask, you don't get anything either.
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny. I'd been kind of aware of Alterna for a long time up till then, and I'd always often thought, wow, that publisher would be a great home for Wulf and Batsy. And then, and then he picked up Josh, who I've been friends with Josh since like 2005. I've known him a long, long time. And when Alterna picked up T-Bird and Throttle, I was like, wow, that's awesome. I've always thought they looked like a good publisher. And so then it was only like a short time later that he reached out to me and invited me to come along. So, and Pete didn't even know
Josh is another one.
Yeah.
He's a great guy too. I interacted with him on Twitter a few times. I asked him questions because I instantly became a fanboy of his. And the funny thing is, I didn't make the connection that he did the Dead at 17. So I went and got them all, and that seems to have a crazy publication. So he told me which order to read it because I'm compulsive that way. Just a great guy. Read his novel. He's just a great guy. So happy with everybody at Alterna. I keep picturing like what I thought Marvel was in the 70s, the bullpen. Like someday I'll go to this imaginary Alterna place and there's going to be you and Josh and Pete and Wes all just sitting around like paper airplanes and kazoos and stuff like that making comics.
Well, I think
you in a gorilla costume.
Well, I often get the feeling that Alterna is made up of a group of people who all feel very grateful to be there. I mean, that's one of I'm constantly saying that like, am I the only one who spent the entire decade of the 1990s and early 2000s, like taking my comic book to publishers and trying to get them to pick it up and nobody wanted it? I've been waiting for a guy like Pete Smetty to come along for, 20 years. And they, and it's, he's given me this opportunity and, now I'm having a ball just making these comics and keeping them coming out. And
yeah. And I'm enjoying them. I think they're some of the best comics that are coming out.
Yeah.
Now, when you get rejected, will you like get discouraged, or are you redoubling your efforts? Like,
well, you have
anybody out there who's trying to make a comic.
Well, I mean, let's put it this way. It's a really weird wake-up call when you spend a few years making a comic book on the side of your day job and your family life and everything. And then you start showing it to the world and the world kind of goes, no, thanks. And you realize you're the only person in the world who cares about this stupid thing. that kind of hits you like a cold dash of water.
Man, that just hurt my heart just hearing that. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is I feel like that's why the Alterna guys are so kind of, I think it's a big group of humble people who have been through that a lot, and now Pete finally found a publisher who really enthusiastically likes our books and wants to put them out. And so I think we're all very grateful to be in that opportunity. So,
well, in my limited scope of like anybody that I interacted with who's a fan of Alterna is like, I don't know, just that they really like comic books. They're hardcore. That zealots, I guess, is a good word, and they just like appreciate everything that you and Josh and Wes and Pete all do. I just it's everything that comic book should be. It's fun.
You got sorry, go ahead.
I'll pontificate forever, so I'm sorry. I'll just say it's fun, it's enthusiastic, and it's varied. All the titles are different. You got everything.
Yeah, you got Rob Geronimo doing Blood Realm. He's a real great guy. You got Wes with his books, and you got I don't know if Josh is coming back with T-Bird and Throttle, but you got Red Koi, the samurai comic.
That is beautiful looking. Yeah.
It's a great collection of stuff.
Yep. Yeah. So cool. So cool. So, I wanted. Do you have a grand story? Is there a grand arc in Wulf and Batsy?
Sort of.
Okay.
Sort of. There. Okay. When I first started the comic, it was really just like, I just want to make up stories about these characters and just see what happens. So it was very much making it up as I went along. But there did come a point where I was like, okay, wait a minute. Like, I need to start answering, or I need to start asking myself some serious questions about who these characters are and where they're going and where they're headed and what happens to them. And so I did kind of write a timeline where I figured out like the major things that happened to them. From their origins before they became a werewolf and a vampire all the way up until they're destroyed. And it's kind of big giant stepping stones, and not all the blanks are filled in, but when did they become a werewolf and a vampire? When did they meet? What is the status of their relationship from the time they meet until they eventually reach the end point of that? And what's their ultimate fate? I kind of figured those out in big, like, checkpoints, I guess you'd say, right? But I'm having so much fun sort of like navigating what happens in between those that I've only sort of, that's not true. There is a story that there's a story where I did hit one of the major checkpoints that when I was doing my self-published trade paperback versions. I did hit the point where their relationship really solidifies. It's kind of hard to explain because I have this whole history of doing these self-published.
Yeah, you don't want to spoil upcoming issues either.
I don't want to spoil things, but it's also sort of like I don't know who's in the dark and who's not, because I have like 17 years worth of self-published stories that I did, and then Alterna picks it up, and now I'm starting over with the reprinting the very first stuff.
So bring on that note, do you find it like frustrating to go back and have to like retell these stories?
No, because because on the one hand, it gives me an opportunity to sort of go over some of the old material and hit those sore spots where the artwork was sort of immature and just not up to snuff, and I was able to sort of polish a few things and do a few revisions to make it look a little nicer. That's a nice opportunity you don't get all the time. It's also given me an opportunity to do some stories that go in between the bigger stories. Because from 2000 to 2017, when I was doing the self-published version, I was doing these big story arcs. I was almost thinking of it like my Star Wars trilogy, like I did the first volume, which introduced the characters, which is essentially now the alternate issues 1 through 6. And then I did from 2009 to 2006 to 2009, I did a big story arc that went in the middle, which was called Lustmord Nightmares, and that was the trade paperback volume 2. And then from 2010 to 2017, I worked on this big, long finale kind of story called Magnum Orgus. It was like my Watchmen or my Godfather, or it's supposed to be my big, giant, substantial one, where I take Wulf and Batsy through a bigger adventure than they've ever been in before, with more characters and interweaving subplots and all this stuff going on. And I'm going to tackle all the big issues and all this kind of thing, and I spent 7 years making it because it was like over 500 pages and it was on the side of my job. and I finished it just in time before my daughter was born. Thank God. Because if I hadn't, I'd still be working on it. But so
this is all going to come out on Alterna then? All of the stuff?
Unless Pete kicks me out, yeah. As long as Pete's willing to keep me around, sure. Well, I would love for it to all come out.
We'll send Captain Bloodcloud over to talk to Pete.
Pete says he wants to, so
As
long as he's willing to have me around, I have every intention of putting all that material out. And what I'm doing now as I go through it and I'm releasing all these things in order from the start, I'm also having an opportunity, because while I was working on those big story arcs, I was constantly coming up with ideas for little short stories or one-issue stories that I didn't have time to do, or I wouldn't let myself do them because I'm trying to get the big stories done. So I was putting all these things aside in a folder now. And Pete even says, he says, in between the story arcs, let's have a palate cleanser. Let's do a single issue story.
Like the X-Men, they would have Dark Phoenix, and then the next after Dark Phoenix or whatever, they'd be playing baseball and eating hot dogs for an issue.
Exactly. So I'm getting a chance to kind of do these little stories that go in between the big stories, which is a lot of fun and very satisfying. So it gives me a chance to kind of rethink my whole series all the way through.
Ah, cool. Here's a question that I wanted to ask you. Do you consider yourself an artist who writes or a writer who draws?
I don't know. I'm just, all my story. I just get weird ideas for monster stories all the time. Like they just won't stop popping up in my head. They're like weeds. And okay. and sometimes it's not even a story. Sometimes it's just an idea for a scene that's visually weird or visually cool or whatever, or something that would be fun to draw. But I can never just be satisfied drawing it as an illustration. I have to put it into a story.
Okay.
So then I'll get an idea for a hook, like this would be a good plot. And then I'll look at all my, because I write these things down. And then I'll look at my list of ideas, like just weird visual cool scenes, and I'll say, oh, that could work in here. That could fit. And it's like putting a puzzle together or something. I don't know. I just a lot of my stories are convoluted excuses to just draw cool stuff that I'm in the mood to draw.
Oh, you kidding me? If I could draw, that's exactly what I would be doing,
But it's fun.
Without a doubt, I joked around and I showed a picture of my artistic skills at the end of the How to Draw Comics the Marvel way. Surprisingly, nobody wants that artwork. So let's just say let's dream, and now Wulf and Batsy is selling hundreds of thousands of copies a month, and this is it. Would you do a second comic of superheroes? Would you ever be interested in doing a superhero comic?
I probably, okay, that's another convoluted question for me, because I'll tell you one thing that did happen. And I see a question on here. Somebody asked, do I have other books I'm working on? Well, here's a funny story for you, which kind of answers your question. Okay. So after I did that big giant Wulf and Batsy project I told you about, the long one, our baby was born. And then I thought, after working on that thing for so long, I need a break from Wulf and Batsy. So I came up with another idea, and it was a totally different story, and it was a horror story. And I started working on it as a comic. And I got about halfway through when the Peter Simeti invitation to join Alterna came along. And I had to put it all on the shelf and turn my attention back to Wulf and Batsy and start doing this, because this was for real. This wasn't just a hypothetical project. This was like a publisher really wants this. So but I had this other project that I had been working on it, and it was about it was a horror story, right? But over the course of that story, it evolved into this thing where I had this weird group of characters who were all kind of together, and they had costumes, and they looked different when they were doing their adventures than they did when they were in their normal lives. And at one point I kind of went, oh my God, I think I just accidentally created a horror superhero team.
That's a great concept.
Without even meaning to. And it's been on the shelf since 2021 when I stopped to join Alterna and start focusing on Wulf and Batsy again. But I've been meaning to, whenever I find the time, I would like to get back to that thing.
You're gonna, between a full-time job, a baby, and making a comic book, you're gonna have plenty of free time.
Right. But sooner or later there will come a phase of time when when the Wulf and Batsy issues I'm putting out through Alterna will be all those big stories, and it will just be a matter of making new covers and prepping old material that's already done. And hopefully during that period of time I'll have the free time to then return to some of these other ideas.
Oh, cool.
And that would be my superhero comic if I was going to do one, right?
Of course, it would have to have a twinge of horror in it. But then again, that's like Hellboy. I don't know if you're into Hellboy, but I always thought he's a superhero, but it's a horror superhero, and I just think it's a lovely blend of horror, Lovecraft, and superhero. I'm a big Hellboy freak too. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to ask you because I just got interested in, because I just read that How to Draw Marvel, the comics the Marvel way. What do you use to actually draw? What tools do you use?
India ink. Well, actually, let me start from the beginning. When I'm doing my
Okay.
page, when I'm doing a sketch for a page or a commission or whatever, or an illustration, I draw it digitally on this. I have a Cintiq.
Okay, that surprised me.
If you're familiar with it. Well, it's
No,
the
I'm
tool
not familiar with that. I just pictured you with a pencil and by candlelight, with a parchment and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, but not yet. The Cintiq is the computer that we use to do to work when I work in animation for my day job.
Okay.
It's what we draw storyboards on.
Okay.
So it's a great sketching tool because it's very easy to change things and revise things. So I will do my sketching on that, and then print out the sketch, lightbox the sketch onto a piece of real board,
Okay.
11 by 17 bristle board, and then from there on, it's drawing with pens and inks and ink bottles and ink brushes and yeah.
So with no knowledge whatsoever, I assume when you're drawing it up digitally, it's easy to get rid of mistakes and make it the way you want without.
Yeah, or if you draw somebody's head too big on the digital sketch, you can easily grab their head and
Oh, okay. Okay.
things like
Oh,
that. Or if you have two characters and they're kind of like interfering with each other's space, if you did that on paper with a pencil, you'd have to erase everybody and redraw them. But on a digital
okay.
sketch, you can literally grab them individually on different layers and just kind of move them around so they fit a little better. So I do my planning on that. But I like to draw the real drawing. When I'm making my comic book pages or covers or commissions or anything, it's like the piece that you have there that you just showed. It's on board, it's with pencils, and it's with inks, real inks. Old fashioned.
Cool. And when you were a little kid, were you always sketching monsters? And I could just imagine your English teacher talking, and you got your notebook open, and you got little vampire bats and stuff. Yeah, I wish I still had my notebooks.
Well, I have to say God bless my mom because she saved everything.
Wow.
She has boxes of artwork that go back to when I was in kindergarten.
Wow.
I didn't even really know about till recently. I mean, I saved all my comic book arts and early comic book attempt stuff from when I was in high school and college and everything. But in earlier this year, I was living in California for years and years, and then I moved back to Ohio where I grew up. And in my mom's basement, I found a box that says Bryan's Old Papers. And it was drawings going from elementary school all the way back to like kindergarten.
Oh, that is so cool.
Which is really weird because I have like faint childhood memories of like rainy and snowy indoor recesses at school in like kindergarten and elementary school where I would just sit inside at my desk and just draw Godzilla and Planet of the Apes and the Wolf Man and all the stuff I was seeing on TV before Star Wars came along and changed everything. Well, Star Wars too and Battlestar Galactica and those things too. I have but this mid to late 70s stuff, right? I remember doing drawings like that, but I assumed they were gone. And just recently, when I moved back to Ohio and found this box, I found a stack of them, and I couldn't believe it.
Awesome.
I mean, these are drawings that I haven't laid eyes on since probably 1978, literally.
Oh wow, that is awesome.
Yeah, that I just assumed were no longer existed, but my mom saved everything. She's amazing that way. So.
When I was in third and fourth grade, I don't know if you remember the show Soap. It was a spoof on soap opera. Me and my friends, we decided to make Sludge. So it was like a Mad Magazine version of Soap, and we just we made fun of commercials and TV shows and Star Wars, and we drew it on loose leaf, and then we charged our classmates to read it. There was only one issue, one copy of each issue. It was 4 issues, and if you wanted to read it, you had to give us 35 cents. And then we would tell the other kids to tell everybody else how good it was. So they'd be like left out, like, oh yeah, you got to read Sludge. And then I went to Catholic school. The nun made us give back the money.
I'll have to. I don't know what I'm gonna do with all this childhood art. I'm gonna have to like figure out a way to post it somewhere. That
would be fun. Yeah,
it's kind of fun to see like my drawings of the Wolf Man in kindergarten.
Yeah,
versus the way I draw them now.
That's such a wholesome story that your mom secretly was taking your art and storing it. That is so cool.
It's crazy.
Yeah. My mom just kept like report cards and things like that. Oh. So you said you have what, like 20 more issues already planned and pretty much drawn, like from all your self-published work?
It depends on how we break them up for Alterna, because Alterna does have their, page count limits for printer costs and that sort of thing, which is only reasonable. But
Right.
some of my chapters, especially in those longer graphic novels, basically when I kept running into a brick wall with every attempt to get it published at conventions, I finally just said, screw it. I'm going to make it my way for me. And I'm just going to treat it like a novel. And if there's a chapter that should be 5 pages long, it's going to be 5 pages long.
Oh, I got you.
And if there's a chapter that's 90 pages long, it's going to be 90 pages long. So
you're going to have to reformat it for publishing.
Yeah, I'm going to have to figure out a different way to break it up, but that's okay. I had to do that a little bit with the first 6 issues, and figured out a way to make it work. So it'll be fine. Or, Alternative does their giants.
Yes.
Where it's double or triple sized issues, I guess. So I'll have to talk to
you believe it? They're giants, triples, and it's still less than $5. It is the best value comic book. It's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable.
Yep.
Yeah, I walked into a comic book store and I saw that Mother Russia was the first alternate comic I got. It was like a 3-issue series, and it was $1.50. So in my brain, I thought it was an older comic.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy in the store was like, "Nope, this is brand new." So I was like, give me the whole series. Even if it's terrible, which it wasn't, it was actually very good. I was like, and that was it. I was like looking for Alterna.
Mm-hmm.
I could go on and on and on, and I'm taking up your time. Oh, I wanted to ask you too. Growing up as a kid, my older brother is into horror movies the way I'm into comic books. So,
right.
And he's 6 years older than me. So he would wake me up in the middle of the night. "Don't tell Mom." And we would go downstairs and watch horror movies. And I thought he was the coolest brother in the world. But as I got older, I realized he was just scared to watch them by himself. So we would watch horror movies. We watched the old Hammer films. And I've been getting back into the Hammer films. So give me some Hammer film recommendations. I know you're the guy to ask.
Well, sounds like your brother is the guy to ask. I love I love all the Christopher Lee Draculas. Some of those are better than others, but the good ones are really good. I love the Curse of the Werewolf with Oliver Reed.
Curse of the Werewolf.
That's one of the best.
Okay.
A real guilty pleasure, but it's absolutely one of my favorites, is the Twins of Evil.
Yes, that was in the Devilina. They had an article about that, which I just got issue 2. I gotta read that.
Nice. That you asked about Carmilla earlier, and Hammer Films did that trilogy. They called it the Karnstein trilogy, where it was
that's based on Carmilla.
Yeah, 3 movies: The Vampire Lovers, Lust for a Vampire, and The Twins of Evil. Now,
I didn't know that.
Of those 3, only the first one, Vampire Lovers, is really a true adaptation of Carmilla. The other 2 are sort of inspired by the idea of it. So
sexy vampire. Let's make a movie.
Be prepared for that. But of the 3, my favorite is the Twins of Evil. It's just
okay. I will definitely watch them. The last Hammer film I watched was my favorite, Vincent Price. He was the Witch Hunter.
Oh, the Witchfinder General.
Yeah, Witchfinder General.
Yeah,
That's it. That was excellent. I love Vincent Price.
Oh, I love the Roger Corman Poe movies. The Poe films with Vincent Price. One of my favorites is House of Usher with Vincent Price. Have you seen that one?
Yes, I've seen that. Yep.
That one is terrific. And
Horror of Dracula, Pete saying is that a Hammer film?
What's that?
I don't. Horror of Dracula.
Horror of Dracula with Christopher Lee.
I assume so. Pete just mentioned it in the comment.
Oh, right.
I guess Justin Hammer films. I remember I used to watch them with my dad, and there was maybe you would know, but there was Christopher Lee was Dracula, and Van Helsing was about to impale him, and Dracula's eyes got all swirly and hypnotized him. Oh my God, that terrified me as a kid. I don't know what it was about that scene, and then that was kind of like my brother would be like, "My eyes are gonna start swirling." I was like, nothing like an older brother to terrorize you.
I go through these weird phases where I get really intensely interested in different subgenres and different eras of horror movies. Like I got really, really, really super deep into the Italian Gothic horror movies. Like all these horror movies that came out of Italy in the 60s and 70s.
Like Suspiria?
Suspiria was one of the later ones. That was one of the last ones. But I'm talking about like Blood and Black Lace, Black Sunday, all the Mario Bava movies, all the Barbara Steele movies. The Long Hair of Death is one of my absolute favorites.
Repeat that one, please. What was that one?
The Long Hair of Death with Barbara Steele. Captain Kronos is a good one. Hey, that's a good. I just saw somebody mention Captain Kronos on the comments there. That's a Hammer movie. That's a really fun one. That's my favorite Caroline Munro performance, actually.
Caroline Munro. Oh my God,
she's good in anything, but she's great in that one. I love her. In that one.
What was which Sinbad movie was that? That was like her and
Golden Voyage.
Played. Yeah, Golden Voyage. Her and why can't I think of the woman's name now who played Catwoman in Adam West? Well, my two first crushes.
Eartha Kitt. Is that no?
Not the Eartha Kitt. Why can't I think of her name? Julie Newmar.
Right. Yeah.
Julie Newmar and Caroline Munro. Oh my God.
That's right. That's right.
Was Dr. Phibes? Was that a Hammer? Was that a Hammer film?
Oh my! I don't think Dr. Phibes was Hammer.
Okay.
Oh boy, why is that? That's one of those things where you ask me too quick and I forget what I've read.
Okay.
But Dr. I don't know Dr. Phibes. I don't believe was Hammer, but that's a fun one too.
The first Dr. Phibes is excellent. The second movie, it's almost like a drug trip.
Yeah. Almost too much of itself. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember watching that one, and we were in college, and I'm not going to mention what we were doing, but I just remember turning to my friend, like, is this real? Is this a real movie? Am I imagining this?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I had a bunch of questions written down, and now sure. I misplaced where I put the list. So anybody in the comments want to ask some questions? Dr. Prime says the Hammer vibe. Okay, but it's not the Devil Rides. Oh, do what about those? Now I got too many thoughts in my head because I just drank a pot of coffee. What would you say is the scariest movie for you?
For me?
Yeah.
Oh boy. I'll tell you one movie that scared me even as an adult was Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer.
Oh yeah, okay. All right.
Just because of the way I saw that movie.
Because it's real.
Well, it's based on a true story, but I remember when it came out, it was on videotape, and I rented it. I was in college, and my roommates were all gone, and I watched it just sitting in the middle of my apartment in the middle of the day. And something about the way it was just so stark and just it was just like this raw video. Like the camera would just hang there and
right. It looked like two guys made it on your family's video camera. Yeah. It was like too real. And oh my God, that movie disturbs me. Like I'm not even gonna say it scares me. It disturbs me.
Yeah, that one really disturbed me. And also another one I think is okay. Here's one that's I found really, really scary. That's a more recent one. Well, more recent than the ones we've been talking about. The Descent.
Oh, I don't think I know that one.
There's a couple of them, but the first movie in that little series, The Descent, it's a movie about a bunch of ladies who go cave diving, and they're spelunking, and they get all the way down to the bottom of these caves, and there's these monsters. There's an entire race of monsters down there that go after them.
Oh, that's
for me, the claustrophobia of getting stuck in tunnels.
Yes.
And the fear of heights when they're hanging over a big open space and things like that. And there's a scene where a girl gets stuck in a tunnel and she can't breathe and she can't get out and she starts to hyperventilate and panic. To me, that's scarier than any monster. Yeah. I
already told you that sometimes I'll have to go to like access tunnels and things like that. Now if I'm crawling through one of these tunnels and I see bug eyes, I'm just rolling over and dying.
but the scenes with the monsters in that movie are vicious too. They're scary too.
The Descent, I gotta check that out.
But it's the combination of the claustrophobia in the caves and being lost in a cave, all those things all those things that make me tell myself I would never ever go cave diving are all in there. All your worst nightmares about being in a cave are in that movie, plus monsters.
I know this is, you probably get laugh, but to me, the scariest movie, I still find Rosemary's Baby to be terrifying. Not because of Satan and all that, but the fact that this poor woman has nobody to turn to. The conspiracy of it all. That her horrible husband basically sells her to a cult. Yeah. And that what's the word? Isolates her or sequesters her. I find that I watch that with my wife, and she's like, it's not scary, but jump scares and slasher movies scare her, but
Uh-huh.
Rosemary's Baby gives me nightmares.
Creeps, yeah.
Yeah.
I used to say the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre was one of the scariest movies ever made. But
yeah, I gotta agree with you.
But I've seen it too many times now. You know what I mean? It doesn't have the same impact on me that it used to.
Speaking
of Texas, you mentioned Suspiria. I think the opening sequence of the first big murder in Suspiria is really pretty scary. And
do you remember the commercial for Suspiria?
Oh yeah, yeah.
That was when I was a kid. Star Trek was on at I think it was either 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, and that was it. I would eat my dinner and I'd go downstairs and I'd watch the original Captain Kirk Star Trek, and that freaking commercial came on during Star Trek and emotionally scarred me till this day.
With that
to the point where I only watched Suspiria maybe 2 years ago because I was so freaking scared of that commercial. I remember running up in terror, trying to explain my mother what I saw, and I couldn't see. And my older brother, who liked the horror movie, he saw my reaction. He went out to go see that movie right away, just from my reaction of how scared I was.
First time I saw Suspiria, that was another one that I rented in college, and I was watching it at night again at home by myself, and at the very beginning they have that scary torrential Wrath of God type rainstorm where it's just so powerful, and the loud goblin music and everything, and we started having one of those crazy torrential Ohio rainstorms outside while I was watching it. That added to the atmosphere, but I thought that was really powerful movie, and some of the ways people get killed in that movie too are very creative.
I remember mostly like the use of color and the lighting in that movie.
Oh yeah. Oh I mean, visually that movie. Now I have a whole thing about this, but I always say Dario Argento got all of his best ideas from Mario Bava, the Italian filmmaker that came before him. But Bava was famous for doing that kind of colored lighting and things, even when it didn't make sense. Like you'd have a character walking around outside in the spooky scene, and he'd have a red light on a bunch of tree branches, and it would look like a comic book drawing.
I was just about to say that. I remember telling one of my friends, like, Suspiria was a comic book made into a horror movie.
Yeah.
Because that's, if you look at the old 70s Marvels and DCs, like sometimes the coloring makes sense, but it made sense in distinguishing the panels. And that's, to me, there's not a horror movie, but I look at John Wick as the same way. Like, John Wick is a comic book made into a movie. Watch the first John Wick movie. There's really only like 4 real colors in the backgrounds.
Well, I would say look at the movie Black Sabbath by Mario Bava. It's okay. You'll see where Dario Argento, the guy who made Suspiria, you'll see where he got all of his best stylistic ideas from. It's that sort of thing where it's just purples and yellows and reds, very artistically placed because Bava was a painter as well as a film director, so he knew how to make a visual that was just really artistic and effective. He's one of my favorite directors ever. I love him.
Did you see a movie? The most recent horror movie I've seen was called Cold Skin. Have you seen that?
Not seen that.
It's race. I think his name is Stevenson. He played the first Punisher. Big act. It's one of those. I think it's set on the same island where they filmed that the lighthouse. But it's a guy goes to an island and there's a lighthouse keeper, and he's going away because he had something done in his past. One of those things. It's like a Lovecraft. So he's journaling, and basically deep ones attack. So he hides himself, and he survives the first night, and he runs to the lighthouse keeper, and he sees it's all boarded up. The lighthouse keeper keeps him, and it's like every night they're just machine gunning and fighting deep ones. I won't say more than that because there's a couple of twists, but
now I gotta see it. That sounds good.
I thought it was pretty good. It was, I got. That's the most recent. It's something about it because somebody said it was basically a Lovecraft deep ones attack. So I was like, I'm a Lovecraft. I got to watch it. Yeah. Oh yeah, 30 Days of Night. Pete says is his favorite vampire movie. I'm gonna say I love that movie because it made vampires scary again. I read an interview with Mike Mignola when he was talking about The Strain, and he says he doesn't like this that vampires are all QT and people want to be. He goes, vampires are monsters, and monsters got to be scary. So 30 Days of Night is my personal favorite vampire movie. I thought that was when that vampire, they're speaking like pseudo Romanian, and he just goes, God, there is no God. That gave me the chills.
Yeah, well, that's just the basic concept for that movie is pretty brilliant. The idea of them being in, where were they? Were they in Alaska or someplace?
They went to Alaska where there was 30 days of night.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. So
awesome
they don't
idea.
they never have to hide during the day. That's great.
Yeah,
That's brilliant. But yeah, I definitely I know where you're coming from with the cute vampire problem. Now Batsy's a cute vampire, right? Because she's female.
yes,
But I remember when, like, I think it was like in the 90s when Interview with a Vampire came out, the Anne Rice stuff started becoming really popular. I had all these other horror fans were loving it, and I was like the one guy who was just like, no, 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 vampires are not no, 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 they're monsters, they're the undead,
they're
you know.
monsters. Yeah,
And so actually that's one of my it's one of the Wolf and Batsy stories that I did in one of my trade paperbacks that will be coming out from Alterna, where I had a whole story where it was about the Anne Rice type vampires versus the old ancient vampires from like folklore. So
oh, cool.
yeah, because I was like, no, I want to draw a dividing line between these two types. And
That's
these
cool.
are the cool ones. These are the
Oh, I got no problems with vampires being sexy romantic. That's kind of like part of the allure or part of the trap, you know, like they're honey traps. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I'm not going to go into an alleyway with Roseanne Barr, but I will go into an alleyway with Batsy, you know.
right. But I mean, but there's a difference though between, like, you know, Vampira and the kind of things that, like, you know, Anne Rice was doing where they were
Yep.
just
I read all the Anne Rice books up until the new one. Oh man, I don't know if you read the last two
no.
Anne Rice. I almost feel like it was fan fiction after Prince Lestat was okay, but after that it's involved space aliens and the most ridiculous plot device ever.
I mean, the very first one, the very first Interview with the Vampire book, I thought had some really cool ideas in it.
I loved her world building, and I loved Memnoch the Devil. I thought the world building and the mythology and the afterlife and all that fake mythology was wonderful.
But yeah, it was just the whole the idea that sprung up around it. You know, something about, I don't know, it just put me off. Like no, they're not all girly. They're they're undead and they suck blood and they, you know, so. Anyway, I'm better at drawing it into a story than explaining it in words. But when that future storyline comes out, you'll see what I'm. I
don't expect you to give spoilers. You know, I don't want to. If I like something, I don't want to know spoilers. Like, right. I decided I want to watch a movie. I don't watch previews because I don't know about you, but you seem to be a big movie guy. It seems like previews just tell you the whole plot of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I go to the movies, I'm like, I want to see this. Like, I'll turn and start talking to my wife, so I'm not paying attention. You know, but if I don't care about the movie, I'll watch the preview. But
yeah,
you know,
I feel like before the internet, that wasn't as big a problem because you didn't see that trailer or preview often enough to remember what it showed you by the time you see the movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was watching a Game of Thrones every week, and sometimes I would be working. So I was working overtime, so I think it was Sunday, so I missed it. Mm-hmm. And I come home from work on a Monday, turn on, and you know, Yahoo tells me,
right,
Jon Snow's dead. I'm like,
oh yeah, right.
MF, you know, I give me a week before you start posting spoilers, you know. And it wasn't even like Game of Thrones spoiler. That was the freaking headline. I was so mad at that.
Yeah. Oh, it seems like that. It's that way with everything. Where a lot of the online news sources, they're jumping out of their skin to tell you what happened and spoil it for you the very next day. So
I don't like.
I don't like that either. I don't like it either.
But I'm just looking to see if anybody has any questions. Yeah, 30 Days of Night was a comic book, and not just a comic book. I think it was the premier comic of IDW comic book company. You know, a company that's kind of like shutting down right now.
Steve Niles wrote that, I believe. I think that was kind of his breakout book. I believe. I think that was the one that kind of put him on the map, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, and he has another property. I'm trying to remember what 30 Days of Night, and then he did something else, and it's escaping me right now. So here's I'm since I'm a superhero comic book guy, what is your favorite, like, Marvel or DC monster?
Monster? Oh, well,
yeah, like I'll throw in like Ben Grimm. He's a monster, you know.
I'll go so far as to say my favorite Marvel character is Kurt Connors, the Lizard.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say the Hulk. Okay. Well, the Lizard is basically a werewolf, but a lizard.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, I had the
I'm sensing the theme.
I still have it, but the Mego doll from when I was a little kid. I mean, that was one of my favorite toys.
Yeah, the purple pants and the white
Yeah,
ripped up jacket. I had that
yeah.
too.
I still have them.
All my Megos fell apart, and I think my mom didn't save any stuff. My mom threw everything away. We had 7 kids in our house, so my mom was throwing stuff away. But
Yeah.
I had almost all the Megos except for Thor, and my grandfather wouldn't buy it for me because he had long blonde hair, and that was for girls. So I never got Thor.
That's funny. Well, I also I'm kind of a toy collector, so in recent years I've actually hunted down like nice, really high quality versions of them too.
It's Surtur right here,
Yeah,
I have a garage finally for the first time in my life, and I have 10 tubs filled with action figures.
Yeah.
Before I was into board games, I was into action figures and comics, and now
Mm-hmm.
board games took. So I'm speaking of which. So when's the Wulf and Batsy action figures coming out?
Oh, I wish I could tell you. I would love that. I would love that.
Yeah, kickstart that. Oh man,
there's a few companies out there that are doing such great stuff now. I only wish my property was popular enough to earn something like that.
Yeah, that would be, and you can make 3 because you got to make
right
Wolf in human form,
right.
and then a little accessory of bats and interchangeable bloody hands for Batsy. That would be would be awesome.
If I got caught up in that project, I'd be.
Oh,
I wouldn't be making the comic book for a year. I'd be so into that. Trying to make that happen.
I bought a resin 3D printer, and I'm still working on it. And a friend of mine is teaching me how to do 3D sculpting. That's my project. I'm going to try to make Wulf and Batsy resin sculpts.
Wow. Yeah, but I forget what we were talking about a minute ago. We were talking about something.
I know. I'm ADHD.
A
million thoughts go through my
I felt like I had another.
Oh, you're talking about Kirk Connors and the Mego dolls.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, the lizard was like my favorite character. Like I mean, I got my Spider-Man comic book collection because I love Spider-Man, but I also have my lizard collection where I've got doubles of all those every issue he was in.
Wow.
Set aside in its own little area. So I can chart his history. But I only like him up to a point because there came a point where they stopped drawing him like John Buscema and they started drawing him to look like a Jurassic Park Tyrannosaurus Rex.
He stopped being a humanoid lizard and started being like a dinosaur monster. Right. Yeah.
I know that's not the lizard to me.
I don't think you could. You don't have the right, not you, but like the nobody has the right to mess with a Steve Ditko design or a Jack Kirby design. That's that's one of my pet peeves is like reinterpreted for a modern audience. Like, no, you're not a genius. You're some committee. You don't get to redesign Jack Kirby. You don't get to redesign Stan. What creations do you have?
Right.
I could go on my soapbox right now.
There's little things you can do with them, like give him the sharp teeth like the Mego doll had, sure.
Okay.
Because that still harkens back to,
he's got to have purple pants.
The era. Yeah. Right, exactly. I love him in the cartoon. I love, as long as he has the right look. That's I love the lizard.
Right. Yeah. I love the lizard. So you do you still collect Spider-Man? Do you still buy modern comics?
Not really.
I know you got the kids and everything, but
well, not even that. That's not even the reason. It's just they don't make them like they used to.
Oh yeah, I quit cold turkey Marvel and DC in 2015 because the modern politics aside, what was getting me more and more aggravated was just the disregard for continuity. Like I felt it was disrespecting the giants whose shoulders they're stepping on. Like these young punks. I guess I'm get off my lawn, kids. But I just felt like the disrespect for the people's work. It just like I remember reading a Black Panther comic and the Rhino. They just talked about the Rhino, but they forgot that he was a Russian guy. You know what I mean? Like do a modicum of research. It just bothered me. Like I felt like, is this an Elseworlds? So I started getting more and more annoyed, and ridiculous. So I cut cold turkey, and I'm buying and looking for new stuff like Alterna or back issues. I think it's a lot of fun.
I mean, I still love the characters, and I spend
I still love the characters.
I spend a ridiculous amount of money every year on the reprint books and the omnibuses and things like that.
Yeah, I still love all this stuff.
But I don't. They just it's not. I don't recognize those characters in the modern books, the way they're written and drawn. They don't. It's not the same people that I knew or loved. You know what I mean? It's not the same characters. You know what I mean?
Right. It's like I feel like I maybe it is old fashioned, but I feel like comic books should be bombastic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like just like, you know, it's just a series of still images on a page that create the illusion of movement. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so each frame has to be like, each panel rather has to be like bombastic on its own, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this deconstructed era of modern comics. I think they're forgetting that, like, this is supposed to be excitement. Like, you could, the example that I always give in my channel whenever I'm talking is it was the Black Widow and Daredevil. They were talking about their relationship, like, you know, are we a couple? Are we not a couple? You know, do you want to have kids? But as they were having this, they were jumping on flagpoles, you know, going over streets, and they stopped the mugging. You know, in modern Marvel, they're sitting at a diner, like putting butter on a muffin. Like, that's not what I want to read. You know,
Right.
you know, but you could still talk about anything, but make it
Right.
exciting, you know.
Right.
And I think they lost that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, also for me too, like, I don't know. I don't have any problem with going back and rereading my favorite stories. I never have.
No.
So, like, I mean, I'll reread my favorite H.P. Lovecraft book or Stephen King novel 10 times, right? Because I just love to revisit it. I just said I said at the beginning I reread Dracula every year because I love it.
Right.
So
I reread Lord of the Rings. I just finished rereading Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, and I, like you said, I pick up something new every time.
yeah, so it's like there's no reason why when I want that fix of the X-Men, I just go back and reread my my old John Byrne issues again.
How many
whatever, or Paul
How many
Smith
times
issues.
did I reread those John Byrne X-Men?
Yeah.
Like, I actually had to like rebuy a couple of, because they're just destroyed from rereading. Yeah.
Yeah, same with Spider-Man. If I want that fix, I just go back and reread the John Romita Sr. stuff or
Yeah.
Steve Ditko issues or whatever, or the 80s stuff that I liked when I was a teenager or whatever.
Yeah. So good. Like, I could never get tired of the George Perez, Joe Simon era Fantastic Four from like 150 to 200.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, how good is that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
okay,
you know
so
what
Spider-Man
else?
is your...
Sorry, sorry. We keep interrupting each other.
Yeah, we'll get excited. That's fine.
I was gonna add one more thought to that, which is the other cool thing about going back and getting all the reprints is there's certain series that I wasn't into as a kid, but now I'm able, if I'm not buying modern stuff, I can spend that money on the reprints of that stuff and discover old things that are new to me now. Like I never really got into the Defenders comics as a kid.
Oh, what a weird comic.
But I going back and looking at it, it's like, well, but the Hulk is in there, Doctor Strange is in there. It's like
right. And they all fight monsters. Yeah. Then later on, the Gargoyle joins, who's basically a monster.
Yeah, there's fun to be had just by going back and finding those things that you thought, well, that's interesting, but I'm spending my allowance on. I only got so much money from mowing lawns all week, so I got to buy my favorite stuff. But now it's like I can go back and get the reprints of that other stuff too.
Yeah, those Steve Gerber Defenders are some of the most bizarre comics you'll ever read, and he for those of you who don't know, he's the man who created Howard the Duck, a comic I wouldn't have touched with the 10-foot pole as a kid, and he was very very into satire and social commentary, but he did it through humor, and so a lot of the stuff as a kid I didn't get what the hell he was talking about, and then I go back and I reread my Defenders and I'm like, oh, that was a dirty joke. I didn't get that. I went right over my head. It was, he's pretty good.
Actually, you want to know something else that just occurred to me? If you want to talk about Marvel, another one of my absolute favorite Marvel comics is, and we're talking 80s now, but the early issues of Cloak and Dagger, the ones that Rick Leonardi drew. And I loved those when they were coming out when I was a kid or in high school, however old I was. It might have been junior high, I forget. But however old I was when those were coming out, I loved them. But I hadn't read them in a long time. And then at some point as an adult, I went back and reread them because I was like, oh, I remember how fun these were. I loved those issues. When I reread them, I realized there's a lot of Cloak and Dagger in Wulf and Batsy's DNA.
Oh, okay. Now I can't not see that.
Little moments, little ideas that stuck in my subconscious from those comics and came out when I was working on Wulf and Batsy that I'd completely forgotten about until I went back and reread them again.
I could see that. Okay.
Yeah. A lot of her behaviors, Dagger's behavior, the relationship that they have. There's a lot of little things in there. I don't know. It kind of struck me like, wow, I didn't realize how deep that got into me.
Hello, Fabio. Another alter. Oh, so I think this
Oh
is
yeah,
officially
Fabio.
Alternicon.
Right. Yeah,
All right. So
I was rattling off alternate titles earlier, and I forgot to say Horace Hoover. That's one of the best
yeah,
books I got right
Horace
now.
Hoover. I'm sorry if I'm going to pronounce your name wrong. Fabrizio. I just watched his video. He does a comic called Horace H. Hoover, and the first issue just came out. I picked it up. I did not read it yet because I got so many back issues. I'm kind of waiting for all 5 because my memory is terrible. But now I just watched his video explaining it and talking about it. I'm probably going to read it tonight or tomorrow. Well, tonight I'm going right to bed after this, but I'll read. Oh my God, it looks amazing! Such a good slate of comics over at Alterna right now.
Wonderful
Oh my
weirdness.
God.
Wonderful
Yes,
weirdness.
wonderful. Yeah,
I
and that's
read it.
right up my alley. This bizarreness of Horace Hoover. Man, I can't even. I'm trying to get my mouth to work.
I've read the first issue so far. It's really entertaining. I love his handling of dialogue and the way he draws his characters and just the situations he puts them in is terrific. Good
cool
stuff.
Yeah, good. Yeah, it is. So I've been kind of like goofing around on Twitter trying to pester Pete into having Alternicon. So I'm saying right here, we're starting Alternicon right here, the first Alterna convention. We could all come down to my basement. We'll play Risk and talk Alterna comics. You're invited too, Fabrizio. So Any you guys don't get together in person, right? Imagine it's all remote work.
We're all spread out. I'm in Ohio. Pete's in where's Pete? New Hampshire, right?
I know the Northwest. He's literally King Cryptid now. Yeah,
yeah. I'm not sure where Fabrizio is. Maybe he'll tell us in the comments there. But
done. All right.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we're all in the northeast end of the country at this point, I believe. So that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, we could have Alternicon at my house. Bring your own sleeping bags. I'll cook. I'm a good cook. All right. Well, we've been talking for over an hour, and I could talk to you all night long. And I know if I don't make a conscious Pittsburgh. Okay.
Hey,
my niece is there. Go visit.
Closer to me than the other guys, actually. There's a lot of great conventions in the area around here. I feel like we should try to all get together at one of these days.
That would be fun. That would be so much fun. Yeah. All the Alterna guys. Then who's that weirdo with the beard? What comic do you have? Nothing. I just wanted to be here. I'll have like one of those pentas, triangle flag with an Alterna. Yay! Hey, well, I guess we'll close this out because I could talk all night and I'll monopolize your time. I know me. So, anything you want to talk about? Anything you want to say that I kept distracting you from talking about?
I don't know. I think we kind of covered pretty much everything. A lot of
fun. I could talk to you all night long. You're such a fun guy to talk to.
Likewise.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I hope you're not a stranger.
Yeah, we should do this again one of these days.
Oh, God, great. Yeah. I know I talk about this a lot, but when I moved, COVID just like ruined everybody. I'm sure everybody has the same story. All the restaurants closed by me, and I was living in an apartment, and I was like, we got to get out of here. I was living in the 5 boroughs. I'm like, this is nuts. So we moved out, and I didn't know anybody, and I finally had everything I wanted, all my comic books, and everything like that. I'm like, so I started a YouTube channel to talk comic books, and this talking to you, Fabrizio's in the chat, it's just, RJ from the Fourth Age. I got to talk about RJ from the Fourth Age. He was the first person to ever like reach out and start talking. This is exactly what I wanted. I'm talking comic books with guys who are making comic books. It's awesome.
Yeah,
it's inspiring.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
And you know what's funny? Actually, one thing we should probably get going now. But one thing that we can talk about next time, we didn't even get into the Marvel and DC horror comics of the 70s.
Oh yeah, well yeah. All right, there you go. That's the next time.
Tomb of Dracula, ready, Werewolf by Night, Weird War Tales, Ghosts, House of Mystery, all those. There's a whole conversation to be had there.
I didn't touch those comics as a kid because I like superheroes.
Right,
and comic books, and it was weird. I didn't like the Star Wars because the Star Wars comics didn't look like the movies. Luke's lightsaber. So I like superheroes. So I did not touch. Now I'm going back and getting Werewolf by Night, and that Mike Plug artwork is awesome.
Yes.
You know, I found I bought a collection from people of the adventure. What is it? Adventure to Fear, the First Man things and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Steve Gerber right there. That is so much fun. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Yeah,
Swamp
I'll stop now so we have something to talk about next time.
Swamp Thing.
Oh yeah,
That's one of my biggest like childhood influences, like going all the way back to when I first started collecting comics.
Okay, so the Swamp Thing, that was the original one. That was Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson, right?
Yeah, I found that later, but first I had the saga, the Swamp Thing, the early ones.
Yeah, I got
Nestor
the Alan
Redondo.
Moore.
Nestor
Nestor
Redondo, I
Redondo.
believe, was the artist. Yeah.
Martin Pascoe was the writer. I think Martin Pascoe, poor guy, had the unfortunate happenstance to be writing Swamp Thing right before Alan Moore, because nobody. It's like the Creature Commandos from Weird War Tales. Yeah, that's what. Buy that now, because before the movie comes out, grab it before the speculators do.
Nothing is weirder to me than the fact that they've done a Werewolf by Night show, and then they're doing this Creature Commandos thing, because forever those were like the weird obscure cheese ball ones that I loved and nobody else did. You know what I mean?
Let me ask you this. Again.
You know what?
Do you get upset when the stuff you love now becomes popular? Like Werewolf by White Night was your comic. Now that Grandma knows about it, does that bother you?
There is that feeling of, hey, these are my toys, you can't play with them.
Right. Yes.
But only with the really weird stuff. I get that sometimes. But then I did watch the Werewolf by Night show, and it was pretty cool. But I mean,
I'm kind of getting disillusioned with all the Marvel stuff.
But I don't know what to do with the. But Creature Commandos feels even closer in a way, because that was even more obscure, I thought, when I was a kid, and I loved that. In fact, I was. Never mind. I'll story for another time. But that was like very near and dear to my heart. Weird War Tales, and especially the Creature Commandos, were one of my favorite comics as a kid.
War Duke, who commented in our chat, he got me to read Weird War Tales. He requested it on my channel. I'll do requests, so I picked up number 1. I saw a pretty decent, and now I'm hooked. I never would have touched war comics as a kid. Did you read war comics? Not war comics, but Weird War comics. Yeah, weird. Yeah, because it's got monsters and guns. I have a stack of those, but Creature Commandos, Weird War Tales issue 100 was one of the most important pivotal comics in my early collecting childhood. Really? I found that at 7-Eleven, and it was an orange cover drawn by Joe Kubert with a Frankenstein, a vampire, and a werewolf fighting Nazis on an island with dinosaurs. It was everything. Oh my God! Everything a little boy needs, right? I was 9 years old. So, Mom, or 10. Maybe I was 10. I don't understand. This is important. Buy me this. What about like the barbarian stuff? Were you ever into Conan? Conan for sure. Yeah. Heck yeah. Yeah. See, I didn't read any of that. As much as I played Dungeons and Dragons, I never read barbarian comics until just recently. Conan for me, that's fantasy. That's my like sort of basic ground zero for fantasy adventure stuff is Conan. Okay. When Lord of the Rings has the orcs, or when Game of Thrones gets a little bit more Conan-y, that's when I love it. That's when I love those things the most. My favorite character on Game of Thrones was the Hound. Yeah, because he was the most like a Conan the Barbarian type character. You know what I mean? He was a great character, great performance, and one of the only characters to have a satisfying arc. Yes. Yeah. Everybody complained about that last season, and I had my issues with it too. But that episode where he fought. Yes, mountain, that was the best. Yeah, there were shots in there that looked like Frazetta paintings come to life. That battle was beautiful. That was everything I wanted. They treated his character with respect. Yeah, he had a satisfying conclusion. That battle with the walkers, and then Jon Snow says to his I forget Bronn. He goes, "I only wish I knew what the Night King wanted," and Bronn goes, "Oh, he wants me." At that point, I would have been like, "What? You knew that?" I would have put you on a dragon and flown you back way up north so that the whole army would have turned around, Right. And then when they got close to you, I would have taken you a dragon and sent you over the seas. You knew this. I was just like, "Oh man, you just killed everybody in the north, all the wildlings, and you knew this." That episode got me so mad. Yeah, well. I know. Anyway, that's one of my things is I rewrite I'll put up a video of my rewrite for the first X-Men movie. Ah, God, that movie was almost, and that gets me mad because the only problem with that movie was the script, and to me that's the cheapest part of a movie. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but the special effects were fine, the cast was great, the directing, but that script just drives me nuts. All right, I'll pontificate for another hour and a half, and I know everybody over in Ohio is sick over there, so you gotta go.
My
But
little
I
girl is
appreciate
sick.
you coming down. This was more fun than I was so nervous. I came home from work. I was like, Bryan, my wife was like laughing at me. She's like, oh, go downstairs, talk to your boyfriend. I was so nervous, but you are the best. This was so much fun. This was more than I expected. God. You're welcome to come back whenever you want.
All right,
two
cool.
Fabrizio, let's make Alternicon happen.
Yeah. You should just do a whole lineup of alternate guys on here.
Oh, that would be fun. Yeah, if I would love it.
Bring them all on one by one.
Get Josh. Get Josh.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. I'll call up Captain Bloodclot. He'll make it happen.
Right. He'll muscle everybody into it.
Oh yeah.
All right. Cool. Well, great talking to you.
It's great talking to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we'll have to do this again sometime.
So much fun. Thank you, everybody, and thank you guys for showing up. Thank you for we got so into talking, so some of the questions kind of just went by, and I didn't see that was more out of enthusiasm rather than ignoring anybody. I don't want to ignore anybody, but thank you so much. So glad everybody could come up, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video. And thanks, Bryan. You're a class act. Everybody thank you, Abrax. I don't know what else to say. I could babble on for an hour and a half, so I'll just go ahead. You take us out.
Thanks everybody for watching, and I hope you like Wulf and Batsy. If you haven't read it yet, give it a try. It's not that scary. Yes. It's only a comic book. It's only a comic book.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
See ya.